Today we're talking about the real reason that it feels like the world is ending. Well, that's because it is, in a certain sense. Now, there's a lot happening in the world right now. There's a struggle that we can see everywhere between forces of people that want to bring us to the future and those who want to drag us back into the past. You can see this everywhere, from things that are happening in America to what's happening in Iran to it's just constant. This battle, the threat of nuclear war. There's this, and there's this feeling of a change and a shift, not only physically as well, but internally. I know so many people who are watching this have just felt this feeling of an end, but not only just an end, but a change and a shift. Because with an end comes a beginning. Because we're going to talk about how reality isn't just a linear reality. Linear reality, there's a fixed end and a fixed beginning, but we live in a cyclical reality. And progressively in a spiral dynamic. And we can understand in a circle that the end is the beginning. In a spiral, the end is the beginning, but on a higher level every time. So the reason that we feel that the world is ending, or a lot of people feel that the world is ending, is there's a lot to it. It has to do with what's coming next. What's coming next for the world at large, and for humanity as a whole, and for consciousness in general. People are picking up on the archetypal pattern of the end of the world. And this archetypal pattern exists because we are facing something that is... So here's the idea. Look, humanity goes through phase changes. It goes through shifts. We are in a pattern of growth. But with growth comes struggle. And with struggle comes the possibility of failure. So there's a big possibility that humanity could fail, and that modern civilization could collapse. But it's also possible that humanity could pass. And if it passes, we can step into a world unlike anything that we've experienced before. See, humanity has existed in this, or rather the world through the process of evolution has existed in this phase of survival. It's this survival phase. And if we look at the history of evolution, if we look at the progression rather of evolution, we can see that it's this struggle for survival. You have all these different avatars or bodies, animals, clashing with each other, fighting, struggling to survive, struggling to adapt. And we don't look at evolution as simply being just Darwinian via natural selection. Natural selection plays a big part in it, but it's also dialectical and teleological. So in general, evolution is looked at simply in terms of randomness and natural selection and adaptation. Now, we reject the idea of randomness. Whenever you hear someone introduce the idea of randomness, whether it be in evolution, whether it be in science like quantum mechanics, or whether it be at the origin of the universe dealing with the Big Bang and quantum fluctuations, or anything. Anytime you hear the idea of randomness is not an explanation. Randomness is a non-explanation. Randomness is what an individual says when they don't have an answer. Randomness explains nothing. It's the lack of explanation. So the idea of random mutation is incoherent and illogical and does not play a part in evolution. Now, mutation does occur, but it's not random. So we support evolution and natural selection, but there's so much more to it that humanity hasn't understood. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because this has to do with this very critical point that humanity is at right now, because all evolution on Earth has been leading up to this. And this is now at a place where humanity is at right now, because if you look at this clash and look at this struggle, because I'm talking about, animal avatars struggling, well, look at this struggle happening all around us between different groups of people, some people trying to move us to the future, some people trying to pull us to the past. All the atrocities going, there's clashes everywhere. So we're seeing this idea in evolution play out now. And that's why it's important to understand this history. So evolution is not just via natural selection. Natural selection absolutely plays a part very much. But evolution is also dialectical and teleological. Dialectical means that there is a clash of opposite forces, an interaction of opposite forces. And dialectics isn't just about a clash of opposite forces, but it's about a class of opposite forces in which ultimately this clash gives rise to something greater. So it's this idea of opposites clashing, and through this clashing of opposites, something new arising from that that's greater than before. And you can see this as evolutionary. Now, dialectics is not linear. Doesn't mean it's always going to be progression, but it's a clash of opposites that leads to change. And then teleological means it's goal-oriented. There's a direction where it's going. It's headed somewhere. It's not just random and chaotic. There is a goal. There is a place it's heading. So evolution, natural selection and adaptation, absolutely. But also dialectics, a clash, and teleological, a direction. So evolution is a directed force, and evolution is a dialectical force via a clash and natural selection and adaptation within the planetary sphere that we live on, and where this takes place is how it plays out. Now, this is the survival phase that humanity has been birthed from, or has arisen from. So the process of the world goes through 3 stages here. You can go through survival, planetary civilization, and planetary independence. Right now, we're in the survival phase, but we're on the very end of the survival phase. We should actually be done with it, and that's the problem. The problem that we're having right now is humanity hasn't realized yet, hasn't woken up to the fact that it's staying way too long in the survival phase. That needs to end. That needs to stop. And this is why we're having all the hatred and war and bloodshed and atrocities and threats of civilization collapse right now. So all the previous history of evolution, all the previous clashes and struggles, was for the purpose of generating an avatar that had a body, a vehicle of mind, a vehicle of sentience that had the capacity to develop conscious self-awareness. Humanity was the avatar that arose through this evolution, through these billions of years of evolution. The human avatar arose with the capacity for a higher level of consciousness, which includes self-awareness. But you can go beyond self-awareness as well. And that's integral to what we're talking about today. But the purpose of the survival phase is to produce, through evolution, through dialectical evolution, through teleological evolution, to produce an avatar with the capacity for self-aware consciousness. And it did that through humanity, through us. Now, it's important that this vehicle survives. Now, this vehicle, our bodies, survive a helpful, an extremely helpful adaptation to ensure our survival is by creating groups, for humans coming together, creating societies, etc. Now, the problem that comes with this is that you have multiple groups that develop, and then these groups clash. They fight with each other. Groups against groups, against groups, against groups. My group versus your group. Now, this is extended into modern civilization and modern society with my nation versus your nation, or my God versus your God, and all these different clashes. The problem is that humanity does not need to be in the survival stage anymore. The stage that the survival stage is at has been accomplished. An avatar has been developed, and we have established ourselves as being the avatars that can survive. Where our being, the beingness of our avatars, our vehicles, are no longer threatened by anything except for our own actions. We don't have to worry about tigers hunting us and killing us or anything like that. Obviously, we've built societies, we've built technology, we're above that. The things that are threats to our survival are now things that either directly or indirectly or through inaction come from humanity. So the biggest threat to our survival are ourselves. And this is what needs to be understood, because this is where the frustration at the blindness that humanity has at the moment, this misunderstanding, this critical failure to realize what they're doing as they contribute to their own self-destruction. We no longer need to be in that survival stage because our avatars have developed and we are no longer threatened by anything other than ourselves, like I said, directly, indirectly, or through inaction or through indirect action or whatnot. And that's a generalization. But the main idea, you understand what I mean. So what humanity has to understand right now is that we need to move from the survival phase into the phase of planetary civilization. If we don't, we face the very real possibility of the end of the world or the collapse of modern society. Now, the end of the world is going to happen one way or another, but there's different ways that it can happen. Either the world will end through the collapse of modern society and humanity failing to graduate from the survival phase and ending up destroying itself and end up not surviving because it did not graduate from the survival stage. Or the end of the world can come about through the end of the old world, the end of the world that's based on simple self-awareness and the survival stage, into a new planetary civilization that is connected and holistic and built on a new awareness, a hyper-awareness of our togetherness and our unity. Because we have accomplished what we need to accomplish. Now what humanity has to do is realize that what we are here to do is now to form a world structure, to form a world system, to form a unitary, holistic system as a planetary civilization, as one world and one people. The problem is that humanity is still stuck in that survival phase. They're still stuck in that fractured stage. Nation against nation, religion against religion. And the world is divided and it's fractured because humanity developed self-awareness. And self-awareness allowed us to realize, oh, we are separate. There was separateness, and it carved out our individuality. And that's a good thing. That's a great thing. But in carving out our individuality, humanity lost the sense of our connectivity. And so now stepping into a new awareness, we want to retain our individuality, but also realize our intrinsic connectivity. Because to create a planetary civilization requires a new consciousness. The animals could not create civilizations and governments and societies. Likewise, simply self-aware humans cannot create a planetary civilization. It requires hyper-aware leaders of a new consciousness to be able to create that, because it requires a new level of consciousness, because you have to develop an analog all, which is a understanding of reality developed as a united, connected system, because that will be reflected in the planetary civilization. You have to have that conscious understanding of what reality is as a holistic system to be able to create a reflection of that, as above, so below, on planet Earth. So there's this struggle, there's this war, there's this battle going on between people that want to drag us to the past and people who want to go into the future. And this is critical. And here, this was really just supposed to be an introduction, but I started to go on a lot because there's just so much to talk about here. This end of the world can happen in a bunch of different ways. Like I said, it could happen through the collapse of modern civilization, with humanity failing to come together. And that could end up with nuclear war. It could end up with a global pandemic. It could end with natural disasters, global warming, cataclysmic events, or whatnot. Humanity needs to be able to come together to face these threats. Now, one of the outcomes, though, that's a negative outcome that we want to avoid, is that the world could be coerced into unity through a master class and a slave class. So unity can be forcibly achieved by a master class ruling over and dominating a slave class. And we want to avoid that. That could very well happen with the billionaire elite. The billionaire elite uniting together and through their power enslaving, creating a slave class through the rest of humanity. And that could result in a quote unquote united world, but it's a forced unity. It's not a unity where people are united in growing and actualizing and having this mutual recognition and mutual benefit and mutual growth, but rather in one where a structure is forced upon it by a ruling elite. And that is a very negative consequence. This would be the development of a slave network. We do not want that occur. So it's important to understand that not only do we need to resist or get humanity to graduate to a new stage, and because of modern to avoid the collapse of modern society through cataclysmic events, but also we need to be extremely conscious of the fact that a billionaire elite will also be trying to take control and direct the world. And we can see hints of this everywhere. For example, billionaires like Musk taking control of the internet, or not the internet, Twitter, and Zuckerberg trying to be the first to pioneer the metaverse and take over the metaverse. And these are very, very real displays of a billionaire elite no longer being so obsessed with generating more income, but becoming obsessed with controlling the narrative and controlling the flow of information. So do you see where billionaires typically are obsessed with making money? And of course they want to make money, but they're getting to the point where they've just made so much damn money that they've switched their focus to being primarily about making money. Because look, Musk is losing money from what he's doing on Twitter. Zuckerberg is losing money from what he's doing on the metaverse. This is because they want to control the flow of information. Because if you want real power controlling the flow of information through social media platforms, through metaverse, Facebook, through Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, all controlled by Meta. And it's this flow of information that is being taken over here. Imagine if these billionaire elites who are doing this ever formed an alliance or something like that. We would be in a very, very bad position. So that's something we want to avoid. We want to avoid this slave network. And like I said, this was I'm going on again, but I really wanted to take a look as well at some bits and pieces of an article here on medium.com by the Knowledge Collective, where it says the old world is coming to an end. And this is why people are tuning into that archetypal pattern of the end of the world, is because the end is an end, but it can also be a beginning. And we want it to be a beginning of something new and something beautiful, a new united civilization. And this says here, reality is not what it seems or you have been told at all. But that does not mean that the world is ending. It simply means that the world is going through a process, having been tested by an old world that was corrupted by ignorance. And this corruption of the world by ignorance is an ignorance to what we are, where we are, and why we are here. Because we're still stuck in that survival mindset, and that basic, humanity as a whole, still stuck in that basic self-aware mindset. It needs to transition to a new holistic mindset that retains individuality. We're not saying to give away individuality, but we want to retain individuality. Just like individual neurons within a brain can be looked at as individual nodes within a higher structure. One can look at it that way. There's many different ways that one can look at as being an element within a system that is all of us working together in a harmony. That's what a planet is for. I've talked about this before. The purpose of a planet is to synchronize its mental inhabitants, to get them working together in unison. And that's the struggle that's happening right now. The people who want the world to remain divided, remain fractured, remain mired in old traditions, and those who are seeing that the world is connected. And one of the social media, there's a lot of things bad about social media. But the good thing about social media is that it establishes a structure for connection. And we're beginning to see people realize that we are one. Before, if some atrocity happened in the world, it probably would take a week for you to get a newspaper, and you'd see some grainy black and white photo of it from whatever some perhaps biased news writer wanted to write, and that's the only way you'd know. It seems so disconnected, so far, so foreign. But now we can through TikTok or Instagram stories or live streams, almost in real time, see what's happening to people across the world. And what's going on in Iran is a great example of this. And we can see that these people are just like you and me. And these horrible atrocities are going on, and we should not stand for that. And we need to come together as a world to stop this sort of thing. And this is what beginning to structure, but you see the opposite forces trying to remain in control and drag humanity back. So the article continues by saying, this is the present generation of human beings getting to know themselves and their potential. It is a process of testing and assessing, learning, building, and expanding. This really is carving out a new awareness in humanity. And a lot of people, this is why we feel an awakening happening all over. You see this big divide that's occurring between those who are awakening and those who are just refusing to let go. It's this struggle of the caterpillar trying to remove to emerge from the chrysalis as a butterfly. It's a difficult process. It's a process of struggle. It's a process of discarding what is no longer helping us, what is now a hindrance. Once the caterpillar has become the butterfly, what was once helping it transform, the chrysalis, is now hindering it. It has to break free from. The chrysalis is what helped it in its evolution, but now it's in its way and it must be cast off. Same thing with the survival phase. The survival phase is sort of like our chrysalis for the development of an avatar and insurance of its survival with a capacity for high awareness. But now we have to cast off that survival phase, or else we will die within it. It says you're feeling this and perceiving this in your mind, body, emotions, and sense of self, knowing it in your heart and soul, reason and intuition, as well as your daily experiences and synchronistic events. And that's why you see this everywhere. You see people talking about this. You feel it yourself, because we are on that razor's edge. We are on that razor's edge where humanity has to make a decision of where it's going to go next. And that's why we want to be the ones who spread awareness and spread consciousness to be able to get that information to help transfer. You know, when I do these live streams and spread this information, people who do TikToks and talk about that sort of thing, it might seem silly, but it's not. This is what is allowing information to spread. Remember, it's that control of the flow of information. The flow of information is very important. So the old world that you're coming to know, the old world of duality, is not the real world. It's an illusion of duality, an illusion that's being revealed to you as you wake up. And it's not only just an illusion of duality, say, between the forces of good and evil or whatever, but it's an illusion of separateness in general. We are both separate and united. We are individual threads within a grand tapestry. We are united together in individuality and diversity, but we are one. And that unity is what humanity is needing to wake up to, and the illusion of separateness, which needs to be dissolved. And suddenly, seemingly overnight, it is all changing. New information and new understanding about what's happening comes to you. You are learning about yourself and your place in the galaxy and beyond this three-dimensional world of perception. And with this comes, we talk about a lot of things about just what's going on in the world, but also, yes, a realization of what you are, where you are, and why you're here, because this is all tied together. You need to understand these three key issues to be able to help build that world and establish that new consciousness, to realize that this reality, or the reality that we experience through our senses, through our sense organs, it's just a fractured piece of what reality truly is. It's just a reflection. It's just a projection of a much grander and much more intricate reality, a much fuller reality, a reality that is ultimately united. This illusion of separation is ultimately an illusion. We are separate in a certain sense, but not ontologically. We are not separate in our very being. We are not separate in. Or what I mean by that is, we aren't only separate. Separateness is just a function of what we are. We're one and many. We are united and separate, just like neurons or nodes in a brain. So you are learning about your multidimensional existence, about how to raise consciousness, and how thought, emotions, and actions have impact that ripple out. You're learning about the direct mind connection between us, but also from the perspective of collective consciousness. And this is absolutely right. This is information that's getting out there, and we see this in the rise of interest in Eastern religion and mysticism and New Age. Now, a lot of that stuff gets a lot of things wrong. You've seen my videos. There's a lot of things that I don't like about these systems, a lot of things that are ultimately dangerous about these systems, but they are much more superior to older systems and, Western religious systems and damaging systems that promote a separateness. So you are now aware that the present world has been influenced so much through the addictive behaviors of insane, sadistic, incarcerated, and psychopathic structures that the world has become twisted and corrupted, but that damaged world is coming to an end. It can, and that's what we want. But we have to be proactive in making sure that it does. Like the caterpillar that's trying to break free from the chrysalis, it has to put in work. It can't just sit there and be like, oh, well, it'll break on itself. No, it'll die. It has to put in the work and the effort to do it. Likewise, for us to have a new world, we are the builders of a new world. We are the transformers. As gods, we are creators and transformers. And we have to put in the work to spread this information, spread consciousness, spread awareness, so that we can step into that new future. It says you are learning how to recognize these traits within your own personality, and that of others by connecting to higher levels of consciousness. You're stepping into the awareness of your multidimensional being and contributing to the world from that level of awareness. And what that means is that from the perspective of us as avatars, as bodies, it seems like we're separate. But what we truly are as eternal minds are all connected in the mental domain. In the mental domain, we are all connected and united. Our avatars are what allow us to experience a localized reality, a reality of difference, a reality of separation, a reality of, you can think of it like when you take white light and put it through a prism and it displays all the myriad colors of a rainbow. So you have those two aspects. You have the unified light and then the myriad the colors of the rainbow that it transforms to, and then you have that prism in the center that facilitates that. And you can think of it a bit like that. It's not an exact analogy, but you can think of your body, your avatar, as kind of like the prism. And what you truly are, what we all are, is that unified white light. And through our bodies, it allows us to experience diversity. But we need to realize that at root, we are all connected, and we need to build a world that reflects that idea, not a world of hate, division, and destruction. You are learning to recognize that you're in a time of transition. You are told that the more you listen to your heart, the more you are aware of your awareness. That means that you're learning to be your own personal higher self. Now, one thing that I want to say here is that it's not just about listening to your heart, or one could say listening to your heart is akin to listening to your intuition. Intuition is extremely important, but we also need reason as well. So intuition and reason must always go hand in hand. Intuition is extremely powerful and what connects us to the source. Reason is what allows us to take information, evaluate information, and structure it into something coherent. So we have to have both. If we just have that pure reason without any intuition, there's no data to order and structure. And if we just have pure intuition, it's just absolute chaos. And this is why in mysticism and the occult and New Age, you have all these crazy ideas. Like some things they might get right, like, oh, reality is frequency and we're all one. But then you get into some really just insane ideas about, contacting the fifth quantum ascendant master or something. You just start to get into really, or the idea that the earth is flat, or you get to some really, really crazy ideas. So one has to have both. It's not just about listening to your intuition. That's very important. It's extremely important. But also one must have a reason to structure and order those intuitions into something that is actually sensible and into something that is actually coherent. That's very important. That's extremely important. Because remember, reality has to be a holistic system. That means incorporating concept networking, as we say, concept networking. And if you sort of look at science as sort of being reason, it's not. It's actually empiricism. But just for ease of explanation, if you look at science as sort of being rational, and then like these new ideas as being new age ideas as being super intuitive, you can see that they're both only having one side of the coin, where you might have science that is rationally structuring and order things, but it's completely in denial of the mental aspect of reality and what reality truly is. And then you have new age systems that might be intuitively aware of what reality is, but has no ability to reason and structure that into a coherent, rational system. Now, again, these examples aren't completely accurate because science is technically not rational, it's empirical, and there's a lot more to it. But you can see that we need to have all of these structures working together, just like in our mind, the different archetypes that reside in our mind. We want to be able to integrate, and integrate means getting these archetypes to work together in harmony, and so that we are living a more full life, a more actualized life, where our internal structures are helping to our development. But this continues by saying this means that you're learning to be your own personal higher self. And that's a really important thing. A lot of people look at their higher self as sort of being this guardian angel that's separate from themselves, that looks after them. And what one really ultimately wants to do is realize that you are your higher self, and you are your own higher self. You are the angel. There is no, you are that divine being. It says this is the process we refer to as the awakening of humanity. You are experiencing this, and it has a lot to do with your individual processes and waking up. And it says that you're giving insight into your place in the cosmic reality. Everything is a test of your belief systems and perceptions, your relationships with beliefs, thoughts, emotions, and actions. And that's a really important point, and goes to what I'm saying here, is that this is kind of a test that humanity can either pass or fail. And it fails by either creating a slave society, or it fails through the collapse of modern civilization. It will pass by stepping into a positive, synthesized, planetary civilization, where we are in a system that's all about creating better selves and a better whole. And humanity can only do this. It can only do this through the raising of its consciousness. You're not going to do it in you look at all the psychopathic things that are happening in the world. You're not going to be able to convince these individuals that their ideas are wrong. Rather, it will take a collective of conscious individuals to start working on the creation of a new world. And that's what we do right here and right now. The information that I do on my channel is about spreading this information to start planting those seeds of a new consciousness, so that we can start to work on helping others raise to a new consciousness as well, and creating that unified and connected world. So this archetypal pattern of the end of the world is being felt everywhere. You can see it everywhere. You can see it in events. You can feel it in yourself. You can feel it in the collective. You can feel it in others. That's because we are at that point, and it's either one way or the other. So the question is, which way will it be? Well, if we have anything to do with it, it's going to be a brilliant new future, and the breaking open of that chrysalis to the spreading of the wings of a brilliant new future, a brilliant new humanity. So, hey, if you like my work, make sure that you like and subscribe, my friends. I appreciate it. And hey, when you like the video, it spreads these videos, and that's a good thing. And I want to remind you, if you enjoy my work, if you like what I do, consider supporting on Patreon. It helps out a lot. You get access to our weekly secret live streams. We're having a secret video right after this about quantum mechanics and reality. So you'll be able to, get access to that, our hidden Discord server, the Citadel. Also, I want to give a big shout out to everyone who does support on Patreon, especially Philanthropist, Zach, Renaissance Fury, Cassidy, Michael, Angela, Maria, Top of the World, Ethan, DB, and Joel. If you want to support, you can support here, or also by clicking the join button on YouTube right below this video.